Greetings from our Middle Tennessee studio. Welcome to today's Vista Points podcast, Choose Your Path, where the Vista Points staff are committed to improving the quality of life for people living with a disability. I'm Bart, your podcast host. My role is to walk with you on this journey of discovering and using special needs trust. If you're listening to this podcast online, I want you to make the most of your experience. If you're interested in using closed captioning, you can turn it on by clicking the CC in the shadowed box on the video screen. We address a variety of topics in this podcast related to the use of special needs trust. Today, we continue to educate you through interviews with business partners who serve people living with disabilities, chronic illnesses, or who have special needs. Today in our podcast, we're beginning a new segment called Ask the Expert. Stay tuned. We'll debut our first Ask the Expert segment after we finish interviewing Gaye Wilson. And now, without further ado, I'm happy to welcome and introduce you to Gaye Wilson. Gaye is the Executive Director of Wilson Rides. Hello, Gaye.
Hello, Bart. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. I've come to know Wilson Rides through some of the events you've had, such as last year's Sip and Sounds. What a great event that was. The service you provide is a blessing to our older adults, and especially the ones living with a chronic illness or who are living with a disability. I'd like you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your position, and just how you got involved with Wilson Rides.
Well, Bart, it's a long story, but since we have a short time, I'll give you the condensed version of it. I have spent my entire life involved in sports. My background was originally in education, teaching and coaching. And I spent, as I said, my entire life in sports. But in 2019, something interesting happened. My mom gave up driving, and she was in her late 80s when she did. And my mom was a super active senior, and she was very involved in the senior center. She's an artist, so she had products that she sold at a local shop called the Basement Marketplace. She also was very involved in social media. Believe it or not, late 80s, but she was on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Her title is, her name on those things is Grandma on Deck, which is a reference to sports. But when she gave up driving, I was trying to figure out how am I going to keep her active and still keep my current job. And through that process, I started looking for transportation, public transportation in Wilson County, which there isn't a whole lot, and there wasn't at the time. There was a cab company and another transportation company that took wheelchairs, but also took, anyone really, seniors to where they wanted to go. But that was the only two options. And also in 2019, I knew the sports league that I worked for was going to be taking that time off because of the Olympics that were supposed to happen in 2020. Well, fast forward just a little bit. The day before the tornado in Wilson County, I was in Panera Bread, and I ran into Wilson County Mayor Randall Hutto, and he asked how my mom was doing. And I just told him that story. And he said, well, we do lack public transportation here in Wilson County, but we're working on that. And there's something coming to the area I think you'd be interested in and you'd be good at. And maybe you could do that along with your other job. And I kind of laughed about it a little bit because I knew my other job was very full-time, and I traveled a lot, worked a lot of hours. But it was after we had that little brief discussion, he went over and read to the elementary school that afternoon. And then the next morning, the tornado hit, and it took that elementary school down that he was at. It also went very close to a senior living community, Rutland Place and Carrot Glen. It went right behind there and didn't touch them, but took out everything else. And we also learned that COVID was entering the community. So all those things at one time happened, and it really changed my life, because through trying to help everyone, keep my own mother safe, knowing how in an instant those lives could have been wiped out, it changed my perspective on that. But also, at the time, I was the board chair or board chair for the Mount Juliet Chamber and the board chair for Leadership Wilson in 2020. All of that was happening at the same time. And I also saw the need that people, they just had a need for help, whether it was due to COVID or the tornado or whatever need they had, there was a lot of it. And that changed my perspective. And I decided then that I was going to change my career. I was part of the big resignation, as they call it. I actually started seeking out those that were starting this program that was coming, and it just said, hey, whenever it's time, I want to apply. And so Wilson Rides became a nonprofit in April of 2020, but it kind of got put on hold because of COVID. I got to interview in December of 2020, and then again in January of 21. And I was offered the job, and I got to start in February of 21, putting together what is now known as Wilson Rides.
Wow, Gaylin, that's an amazing story, and what a time to start a business. I like it when our listeners learn about the business from the person who runs the business. Now, can you tell us about the services Wilson Ride offers? I know many people benefit from these rides.
Sure. Wilson Rides provides rides to senior citizens in Wilson County who are 55 and over. They are not driving anymore. They seldom drive, or maybe they're just not able to drive at the moment. And I say it that way because sometimes some of these seniors are still driving, but if they go to a eye doctor's appointment and they can't drive home, they need somebody to drive them home. So that's the not currently driving aspect of it. But some seniors have voluntarily given up driving. Some may have never learned to drive. Some have moved here and they don't know their way around Wilson County yet. There's a variety of reasons why seniors 55 and over are not driving, and they need someone to take them somewhere. We give rides to a lot of different types of destinations. So the grocery store, pharmacies, the bank, grocery shopping, the hair salon, retired school teachers meetings, other civic organizational meetings. And we also give small pets a ride to the vet, because if these seniors, aren't giving ride or getting to where they want to go because they don't have a ride, either are their pets. And I always joke with them. I tell them we're not going to take a horse or a cow or a large animal to the vet, but we will take your small pets to the vet. So we take seeing eye dogs as well. So we do provide a good service to the seniors in our community, and it really is a more personal experience for those seniors, because it's a volunteer driver that's been fully vetted who is giving a ride to that specific senior only.
Wow. Wilson Rides is a great organization. What impact has Wilson Rides had in the Mount Juliet, Tennessee community in the last couple of years?
Well, we've made a huge impact. I'd like to think. I know that we have only missed giving one ride that was scheduled since we started. We started giving rides in June of 2021. So we've had about a year and a half worth of rides. Our volunteer drivers, as I mentioned, they're fully vetted. We check their background. and their driving record monthly to make sure that everything's on par. But our drivers these are outstanding citizens in our community that most everybody knows. They're Rotarians, they're Kiwanis Club members, chamber members, retired CPAs, retired business owners. They're people that are well known in the community. They have given, since June of 21, these volunteer drivers have driven over 26,975 miles as of today. They've donated over 1,336 volunteer hours of their time, and they've given over 500 round trips. And when I say a round trip, that's from the rider's home to home, but there's many stops on that round trip. So they've actually made over 1,500 stops as well. So I'd like to think that we've made a huge impact on our community. And also last year we hosted a Friendsgiving right at Thanksgiving. So we partnered with Rutland Place Retirement Living to put on a nice Thanksgiving dinner for the people that ride with Wilson Rides. So I'm happy about the impact we've made so far.
Galen, that's amazing, the things that you've done. I was reading through your website, and I'll be giving that website address later, and you probably will be too. The listeners know that I will give the address and phone numbers of people we talk to. I have a question. You were talking about the mayor, and you talked to the mayor, and the mayor said there's a new thing coming. Is the Wilson County mayor and office involved with Wilson Rides? I only know enough about this to be dangerous.
Well, let me tell you a couple things about that. Wilson Rides is named after Wilson County. It's not named after me, so I always preface that. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization in Wilson County. So I am not an employee of the local government. And we do apply for grants through the cities of Mount Juliet, Lebanon, Watertown, and also the county of Wilson. We apply for grants just like everyone else. And if we're fortunate enough, we're awarded grants for the reasons that we've listed and they've stipulated. But we are not a line item in their budget. But Wilson County Mayor Randall Hutto is very passionate about seniors, and he is very involved as he can be, and we appreciate his support. You talk about our board of directors, and also just what a great group of people they are. We do have a board of directors that is getting ready to grow by 3 people this year in 2023. Maggie Lee is our board president. She is the owner of Home Instead, located there in Lebanon. Tracy Pope, who is the community relations manager for Vanderbilt Wilson County Hospital. Joe Shade is a vice president at Southern Bank of Tennessee. Bryson Eubanks is elder law with Kane and Crowell. Sean Dozier owns Hearthside Senior Living. Well, he's the executive director at Hearthside Senior Living. Gerard Bullock is a local realtor here who has a passion for seniors. And then Susan Shaw is actually the special projects coordinator in the Wilson County Mayor's office. And she is a special projects coordinator because she gets things done. And so that's kind of our connection to the mayor's office. But we are actually adding some other people. Dr. Donna Wright, who's recently retired from the Wilson County School Board. Danielle Druick is a retired, she's a business owner, Gammon and Druick. She is a CPA. And then Glenda Taylor is a retired, she worked at Veterans Administration in Nashville, and her husband owned a CPA business. So an accounting business, I'm sorry. So she's also retired. But those are our new additions to the board of directors. And I just want to add to that originally, Maggie Lee, who's now the president of our board, she and Mayor Hutto talked about bringing this service a long time ago to Wilson County. And it's those two that got it started. And they took this concept, even though this rideshare concept is not a new concept in the country, it's new to Wilson County. And they took it to the Lebanon Chamber of Commerce, to the Healthcare Roundtable, and said, look, we need this. We need to get this going. It's not a line item in our budget. The seniors need it. There's a high readmission rate of seniors into the emergency rooms because they're missing doctor's appointments. Get this going. And it's that initial group that formed the board and formed the nonprofit that got it going. And that's the group that hired me. So that's a little bit about our connection to the mayor's office.
Okay, well, I'm glad you explained that to me and our listeners. You've got so many interesting professionals on your board. How do you get them interested? How do you? These are great people with lots of wonderful ideas. How do you recruit them?
Well, it's just, networking and getting out involved in the community and learning who has a passion for seniors, but also that has a servant's heart and wants to give back to their community. You wind up meeting these people at different events, and you tell them a little bit about Wilson Rides, and and also because I am so involved in the community, I know the movers and shakers. I know where their hearts lie, and as far as their service, and they just want to be a part of it, and so it's really not a hard sell to anyone. They enjoy it. They want to be a part of something that's giving back to their community. And let's face it, we all have parents that have aged, family members, friends, neighbors, people that we sit next to in church, and even ourselves. I'm speaking of myself. We're aging, and we're going to need this at some point. And I think people realize that, and they want to help.
Thanks, Gaylin. I want to flip back to one of last year's events, Sips and Sound fundraising event. It was such a huge success from my point of view, and I'm glad I got to attend. But would you tell our listeners a little about it? And are you planning to have a second Sips and Sounds event this year? I'm sure many listeners would like to get involved.
Absolutely. We're going to have it again. It was called the first annual. So this year it'll be the second annual. We hope to go back to the same venue that we held it at last year. And, it's through my past work in professional sports, we intertwined music into our sports, whether it was television commercials or, having tailgating parties or whatever it was. We always tried to bring music into the event or the venues or whatever we were doing. And living here in the Nashville area, it seems like, it's a no-brainer, and everybody, loves live music. And so I wanted to do something that was kind of the end of the summer, early fall, with just an event that had live music. And I wanted to do it outdoors, which is always sketchy because of the weather. So we picked the end of September. We looked on the internet and Googled the weather in Tennessee and in the Mount Juliet area. And it seemed that the end of September, that transition into October, was kind of the time where we get the least amount of rain. So we jumped in with 2 feet and said, let's do this. And what a great event it was. I was so excited about the way it turned out. I do believe everyone had a good time. I know the food was great. The venue was awesome. And we absolutely are going to do it again next year, the end of September.
That's wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not trying to rush September, but I'm looking forward to coming to your event once again. Let me ask you about the specialty license plate program and the campaign with specialty license plates. I know the specialty plates, no matter what the design is a big hit. How is Wilson Rides involved with specialty license plates?
Well, in order to have a specialty license plate, there always has to be a nonprofit that benefits from having one of those. And a specialty license plate, we see them all over town. Could be the Titans or the Predators, or if you're a Georgia fan, which some people probably are now, or an Alabama fan, the Susan Coleman Foundation, honeybees. Everybody's got a specialty license plate. A few years back, there was one designed for Wilson County, and actually a Wilson County high school student designed it. Now, when I say a few years back, this student designed it. He's already gone on to college and graduated and is working in the area somewhere, but it was designed and nothing really came of it. And when I took this position, that was one of the first things that Mayor Hutto asked. He said, would you be willing to take this project on? It's a beautiful license plate. We always advertise at Wilson County, it's the place to be. That's what this license plate says. And we want people to show their pride in living here. Would you be willing to take this on? And I said, absolutely, we can do that. And you have to get approval from the state to do it. You have to designate a nonprofit, which Wilson Rides became the designated nonprofit. And then you have to get 1,000 commitments up front for this license plate before the state will even make them. And so we have just recently, before Christmas, got the 1,000th commitment for the license plates. And when I say commitment, it's just not only giving your name and address and phone number. It's providing a $35 fee with that, which is refundable if the license plate wasn't going to be made. But we got the 1,000th commitment. We're waiting for the state government to go back to session so we can get this ball rolling. And these license plates hopefully will be out sometime, in the middle or late time of this year. And we're very excited about it. Wilson Rides will be the beneficiary of the specialty license plate sales. And, it's something that can be perpetual. It can happen every year as long as we want it to go.
Wow, I'm looking forward to seeing that license plate. Now, I've got a specific question for you. I know I'm going to put you on the spot. Many of our clients with Vista Points Special Needs Trust are unable to drive. We know that getting out, being mobile, being able to do things on your own is important. I want our listeners to know that transportation is covered expense when someone establishes a special needs trust. The cost of a ride can be paid from the client's trust. I can see where your service would impact our clients in more ways than just transportation. Can you elaborate on this aspect? How do your clients pay for their rides, and how much does it cost?
Well, to become a member, you have to become a member, first of all, to ride with Wilson Rides. And becoming a member means that you fill out an application and you complete a home visit. And the cost of that is $25 annually. And what we do on the home visit is and the home visit could be at the person's home. It could be in the conference room or the activity center where they live. It really is about assessing their needs. It's not, I always say, it's not checking out the home or the animals. It's assessing the person's needs. What do they need us to do? How many times will they ride with us? Can they actually walk 25 feet with with no assistance? Or what devices are they using to help them walk? Those are the things, that's the type of information and the things I need to gather to be able to pass on to my volunteer drivers. So there's the $25 annual fee. And then our round trips cost $6 each. A round trip to and from your home, $6 round trip. That's it. And we ask that people pay for blocks of 4. So 6 times 4 is $24. if somebody says, I want to ride with Wilson Rides, they need to be 55 and older. They need to live in Wilson County. They need to go to places in Wilson County, and they need to be ambulatory. They need to be able to get in and out of a vehicle with limited assistance. They need to fill out the application, and then they need to complete a home visit. And when they complete the home visit, that is the time that they pay the fee of $25 and then the added $24 for 4 round trip rides. Once they pay that fee, they're ready to get going. We do take walkers, transport chairs, rollators, oxygen tanks, morphine tanks, canes, small pets to the vet. We do those things, but we do not take a wheelchair. And I say that because you have to be able to get in and out of a car. And even if you can do that, our volunteers have a hard time lifting wheelchairs. So we do take transport chairs, but not wheelchairs. And there is a company or two in Wilson County that do transport wheelchairs. That's just not our service.
Okay, thanks, Kaylin. How often can someone use the Wilson Ride service? How often can I get a ride?
Okay, first of all, you have to schedule your rides 7 days in advance, a week in advance. That's 7 days. You can use our service twice a week, and we limit that just because of the number of volunteers. We never have enough volunteers to give all of the rides that are needed, but we're working on that. But you can use our service twice a week, and we give rides between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. So we can't pick you up until 9 a.m., and we have to have you home before 4 p.m. if you have an afternoon type of appointment or something you want to do.
Good. I was going to ask you about the specific hours, and you answered that before I could even ask you. I appreciate that. I have another question about it. What if someone wants to become a volunteer driver? How do they sign up, and what kind of qualifications must a person have?
Well, you can sign up on our website, and the website address is wilsonridesinc.org, and it's wilsonridesinc.org. And there's a section that says volunteer, and under that it says volunteer driver. That is the preliminary process that you go through. You're able to sign up for different driver trainings that we have, and we hold them in Lebanon and Mount Juliet. You also can sign up for an informational session, and let's just say you want information but you're not ready to do the driver training. You can sign up for one of those, and those are done online via Zoom. The training sessions to actually become a driver are done in person. And I tell people this, they ask, well, can't we do that over the internet as well? And this is my own personal philosophy, but my mom is a part of this program, and I want to meet the person face to face who might possibly drive my mom. And so I treat all the seniors in our program that way. I look at them, I want to know who the driver is, and I want to meet them face to face. So that's one way, or you can simply call me on the phone and talk about it, and then I can get you signed up as well. And that phone number is 615-622-5557.
Okay, Lynn, I appreciate all the information you're giving us, and I wanted to let our listeners know about one more service that you offer. You have an excellent podcast. It's called Story Time. Can you tell us about your podcast and maybe give us a Cliff Notes version of one of the people you've interviewed?
Sure. Through all of these rides that we give, our seniors tell us the most amazing stories. And there's times I've found myself, and I know our drivers have, we found ourselves sitting in the car. And I'm not talking about personal information. I'm just talking about stories of living here in Wilson County and the jobs that they've held, or things they did when they were a little girl, not medical information. But I'm in the car and I'm thinking to myself, am I the only person that has just heard this amazing story? Wouldn't it be cool if we could start sharing some of these, especially the ones that are in their 90s? Because once those stories are gone, they're gone. And so there was a program called, there still is, it's called the Governor's 3-Star Program. And I was voluntold to be a part of that. And one of the projects came out to be to make Wilson County a more livable community for seniors. And there's several aspects that go into making that happen. But one happened to be education and communication. And that was the project that I was working on. And I said, there's not a better way to do this than to start a podcast and start sharing these stories of the seniors that actually live in Wilson County. And then to be able to take those stories and transcribe them and then put out the information in print so that those that don't have access to a computer or can't listen on the internet or a podcast, they could actually read these stories. And so that is how the podcast came to be. It's called Story Time with Wilson Rides, and you can listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Or you can also, you will be able to request the stories in writing, and we do plan to put those out at the senior centers and other locations that our seniors get their information.
Thanks, Gaylin. I really like the personal touch that Wilson Rides has, connecting with people and working with people. That's neat. I appreciate you allowing me to talk to you today and interview you and ask you questions. And could you tell our listeners one more time your website and phone number in case they want to get in touch?
Sure. You can find us at wilsonridesinc.org, and that's Wilson Rides with an S, INC.org. And our phone number is 615-622-5557. And there's also a link on that website to our podcast.
Thank you so much for being with us, Gaylin. I appreciate the time you've spent with us, and I know our listeners appreciate it. Now I'm going to change our focus a little bit and talk about our first Ask the Expert question and answer. Vista Points Executive Director, Ms. Darlene Kemp, is here today to answer a couple of questions that were submitted by you. Welcome, Darlene. You might remember her. She was on once before last year.
Hi, Bart. I have a magazine column that's becoming pretty well known across the state of Tennessee, and it's called Ask the Expert. I thought it would be great to incorporate it into the podcast because if one person has a question, I bet others have the same. And as you know, people of any age who are living with a physical, mental, or intellectual disability, or people who have special needs, can qualify for a special needs trust.
Okay, I've got a couple questions from you. Our listeners established a third party. Well, they've sent one in, and I'm going to ask you the questions, and I will quote it just how they wrote it. One of the questions a listener asked is, I have recently established a third party special needs trust for my son. He has autism. He will not be able to care for himself as an adult without additional assistance. The money I've gifted my son in this trust will take care of him and future needs. I want to be sure the money is used correctly so any expenditure does not affect the government benefits he's receiving. What are some allowable expenses, Darlene?
Well, although this mother may not realize what an exceptional gift she gave her son, the trustee is there to serve the son's needs so he can live a good quality of life. Many parents request services such as respite care so they can have a break, non-medical care, allowing social interaction with someone other than a family member can happen. Housekeeping is needed with many of our clients. Additional therapies or services such as chiropractic care, acupuncture, and massage benefits the clients. The purchase of items such as educational toys and classes can be made. Therapeutic equipment and electronic devices can be purchased. Some of those are computers and cell phones and gaming devices. All of these items or services can be paid from the Special Needs Trust without jeopardizing the son's government benefits.
Well, thank you for that answer, Darlene. That includes a lot of things. I know you follow the letter of the law, but let me ask you, has anybody ever tried to use a special needs trust for something that's not approved?
Well, yes, they have. And that's one thing that when I first started with the organization was a wake up to reality because I thought everyone followed the letter of the law. And for some of the requests we've received, I don't think that the people are doing it on purpose to try to take advantage of their loved one who has a special needs trust. I think that they feel like they deserve it or they want to help someone else. For example, many times, especially around Christmas, we get requests to buy gifts for the beneficiaries' caregivers, and we cannot do that. The money has to be used for the sole benefit of the beneficiary.
I got that. I bet you have a lot of stories. I have another question a reader submitted to us, or a listener submitted to us. My brother was recently in an accident where he lost a leg and an arm, along with becoming blind. With all this happening, you would be surprised how high his spirits were. He says this is his new adventure in life. I want to be able to guide him, and the best thing to do with the lawsuit settlement money he will soon receive. Should I tell him about a first party special needs trust and how it will benefit him?
Oh, yes, most definitely. But first, I want to say how sorry I am for this loss of limbs and the gentleman's sight. And second, I want to commend the brother on his positive outlook on life. He can be a role model for so many. Sharing information about the benefits of special needs trust is the correct thing to do. Although the brother's outlook on life is very good, he still needs to think about his future health and needs. By depositing the settlement money into a first party special needs trust, the brother should be able to qualify for government benefits to help him with his day to day living expenses and Medicaid to cover his ongoing medical requirements.
Thank you, Darlene. Thank you for answering the questions, and thank you to the listeners for tuning into today's episode of Choose Your Path, the Vista Points podcast. I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can be notified as our latest episodes go live on the 1st and the 15th of every month. The Vista Points YouTube channel is named Vista Points SNT. That's SNT as in Special Needs Trust. You can also find past podcast episodes on Vista Points website at vistapoints.org, along with the transcript of each podcast. That website again is vistapoints.org. If you don't already know, the episode topics are in response to listeners' questions. If you haven't asked your question yet, I encourage you to ask or share concerns online or by calling. When you're online, visit Facebook page named Vista Points Inc. That's Vista Points INC. While you're there, you can send us a direct message, otherwise known as a DM, by clicking on the messenger button. It looks like a sideways lightning bolt. For those who are comfortable, ask your questions via Facebook. You're welcome to contact the Vista Points office at 888-422-4076. That number again is 888-422-4076. Each Vista Points team member stands ready to answer your questions and assist you. Enjoy your day with your loved one, regardless of where you are or where you find us. We walk beside you on your path. Our desire is for people of any age who are living with a physical, mental, or intellectual disability to have a good quality of life and give their family peace of mind, knowing Vista Points is looking out for the beneficiary. I look forward to our next steps together and speaking to you soon. Cheers.